Hello folks, hope you're doing well. Just a quick video, I'm going to speak about someone I spoke about before. A man called Grant Gill, who was the pastor of a church I was at years ago, in about 97. I think that's when he came to the church, in 97. King's Church in Chatham Kent, in England. King's Church in New Road, Chatham Kent. Yeah, so he went there at around about 97. Before that, it was, I can't remember the original pastor. There were two pastors there. That didn't work because one of them was, basically had to step down because, well, he was a spiritual pastor. There was two. There was one who was basically a teacher. The other one was a pastor, but they were both counted as the joint leaders of the church. And the one who was like the teacher, he had to step down because he was having an affair with some other man's wife, and he had a wife himself, so obviously he was cheating on his wife and on someone else's wife as a leader, so he had to step down. I think he was called Arthur. Can't remember his second name, sorry. First name was Arthur, I do believe, or that was the other one. Well, there's one of them anyway. Anyway, so yes, well, Mr. Gill, he did some good stuff, Grant Gill. He brought people like Rick Godwin to the church to minister, and Rick Godwin was one of the ones that I got meat from as a young believer. And while at that church in Chatham, they started projects one was called Caring Hands in the community. Caring Hands was basically a centre for homeless people who could get a hot meal and a shower anytime they turned up. So basically, I think it was only open during the daytime, but that was every day. So it's quite it's quite strange, actually. Let's say in that town, Chatham, there were some beautiful things going on, because what they did with the homeless was lovely. Providing meals and letting people get a shower. There was also clothing that homeless people could get. There were people donating clothing, and they probably had Leonard Gill, who's not related to Grant Gill. Probably had him donating furniture to people who actually found accommodation. They didn't have any furniture or any cups and saucers or pots and pans. Yeah. So, as I say, that was lovely. Did that. But I say, Grant Gill was also this incredibly arrogant pastor. Really, he had an incredible arrogance about him. He was the one that I mentioned before, where he basically said, right, he's going to create about 100 different pastors beneath him. It was probably only about 20, actually. It looked like 100, but it's probably about 20. And yeah, he didn't manage the church that well, really. But he stayed there for 7 years. I wasn't there for anywhere near that time. I think I was there for about 3 years. 2 or 3 years I was there. Yeah. I mean, put it this way, he was a nice enough person. But as I say, he put himself out of the reach of most people in the church, where they couldn't get to him, where they couldn't speak to him. He did things according to the South African way. Was it called Rhema Ministries? He'd been involved in South Africa. That's, I think, where he grew up. I'm pretty sure. I was trying to figure it out, actually, what that ministry was. I think it was Rhema Ministries that he was involved in. But there was an incredible arrogance about him, which to a certain degree was good, because he was certainly sure of himself, which was good. But as I say, he did some lovely things. Caring Hands was one, and Little Eagle's nursery school in the church was also something he created. Yeah, but then I'm just looking him up to see if I could find out the ministry he was part of in South Africa, and there wasn't. There was only really one story, and that was where I think, when was the story in? Bear with please a second. I think that's 2004. Yeah, 6th of December 2004. Basically, the headline is Pastor Facing Bleak Christmas. He had basically ended his time at the church and believed the church owed him money. And he was suing the church at the local magistrates, I think. Was it magistrates? No, county court. Heard at Medway's County Court. He was suing the church for £39,000. And isn't that just incredibly ironic? You know, he's in a situation, he's this man of God come over from South Africa, incredibly sure of himself and all that, and he's not letting God deal with the situation. He's not trusting in God to deal with it, and this is the point, is that great men can fall. He wasn't a great man in any way, shape or form, but he was great compared to most of the church leaders I've come across. He was slightly higher than them in what he achieved and what he saw and what his faith was able to seize and what he was able to receive was higher. But even he, when it came down to it, basically he made a statement saying after 7 years of serving this community, we are facing bankruptcy at Christmas time, all because of foul promises. I don't think it was all because of foul promises. Yeah. I don't think it probably was, because if you were right with God, God would have sorted it out for you. That's the reality. God would have sorted it out. Yeah. So difficult. Very difficult indeed. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't think there's any more news on him. Whether he's on Facebook or anything like that, I don't know. He may very well be. But the problem is there's probably quite a few people with that sort of name. So finding particularly him could be rather difficult. I'll do another search later. But yeah, it's pretty cool seeing all of that. But I mean, the reason why I'm talking about this now is because it is a case of, how the powerful fall, and they do, and how we have to be incredibly aware that of a few things. First of all, if we ever get to a position of power, we have to be aware that that temptation to do things according to self, that temptation to be ego and full of pride and that sort of stuff, is always there. You've got to be learning from other people's mistakes. You don't need to know exactly what other people's mistakes are, but try and learn from them as much as you can, because certainly did Mr. Gill, did he make mistakes, Mr. Grant Gill? Yeah, he did. He definitely did. And so, his mistakes led him to that position he was in 2004. Yeah. But as I say, also understand from the point of view that when I was in Chatham Kent, when I was in that area, I thought, this is quite bad. I'm not impressed with what I see. Then I come up to Scotland and it's like blinking, or in Chatham Kent, that they were doing things pretty well. Yeah, because up here, in this church here, they just had the Soul Food Day. They have that once a month. Once a month they have that. 1 day a month. Care in Hands was open every day. Every day. Yeah. And I'm not trying to go at the church up here, because compared to most churches, they're doing more. Doing that soul food, I think it's the only church doing that in this area. I don't think other churches are really reaching out to people and trying to be a blessing to people anyway. So, what they're doing is impressive for the area. But what I'm saying is that, back in 2002, 3, 4, or just before that, I was in a situation where there were some gorgeously beautiful things going on there. I mentioned the other church in the town that had to worship every Wednesday lunchtime, where it was open to anyone from any church just to go in and worship God every Wednesday lunchtime. Pretty much without fail. 52 weeks a year. I mean, that was fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. Other churches in the area had their faults, definitely. They weren't overly impressive, but it is definitely a case that there were some churches in the area that were fantastic, that were doing a great job. Well, as I say, compared to what most do. So, were they doing a great job compared to the Bible? No. No, but they were doing a great job compared to other churches. And now I'm in an area which is, a million miles away from that. That's a certainty. So, it just crossed my mind, should I move back to there? No, I don't think so. Unless God wants me to. Simple as that. Unless God wants me to, I wouldn't. So I have no intention of ever going back there. But there were good things there, certainly. Bad things as well, but there were some good things there. And looking back, it's good to realise that, to understand that. And as I say, I'd forgotten about the good things he had done, that Pastor Grant Gill. But he had done some good things there. I'm sorry for the way it worked out for him, because although I didn't agree with the fact he made all these 20 pastors there to make sure that people can get to him, that sort of stuff, but it's like, again, he was working with his own understanding and the understanding that he'd been given from the people that he'd been taught. So, I'm sorry that it worked out that way for him there. So, I'll be interested to know where he is now and see if I can contact him and say hello. Because even though we wouldn't necessarily have got on in the past, I don't think we've got along too badly. I suppose to him I was just a little upstart who was questioning things, and I'd only been a Christian at that point for 10 years, whereas he'd been in ministry for probably longer than that. So, so there you go. Right, it is what it is. I say we all know examples of ministers that have, good ministers that have fallen, and powerful ministers that have fallen, egotistical ministers that have fallen, and people that did good things that have fallen. So that's just another one of those. So we've got to be careful. So there you go. I'll speak to you soon. God bless. Bye bye.